The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Ciarra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Ciarra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. Hey everybody, we are here today, just Samantha and I, just a little, not solo, duo episode for you today. We're going to talk about some of the companies that are covering these fertility options for people. It's like Carrot Fertility is one of the options, or your insurance might cover doula care for birth or postpartum doula care. There's like Maven, there's all of these different things. And we're going to talk a little bit about what if you don't have anything to help pay for your doula services? What are some ideas for those people? You people, most of us, right? Most of us don't have that coverage right now. So let's start off by talking about what it looks like when insurance covers birth doula care. Sam, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so this is becoming a little bit more common. I think we're starting to see this happening more, and there's definitely a bigger push for it as doula services are becoming more well known. And I think that it is really, really cool in a lot of ways because we want doula care to be more accessible to people. It is a huge expense. We fully recognize that as doulas, and being able to have your insurance pay for some portion or all of it is really fantastic. So I think the ones that we see this happening with most commonly is TRICARE, which in the United States is our military insurance, and then Medicaid, Medicaid. I always get Medicaid and Medicare mixed up in my head. Medicaid covers some portion of doula care in some states, not all states, just some. And what that looks like is they have restrictions for what certification company your doula went through, what program your doula went through. So there's only, I think, a handful of them that are covered by those insurances. And if you are outside of that, then you can't get reimbursement for those services. If the insurance company is paying the doula directly, they have really, really strict guidelines on what the doula can and will do. Like they want a certain number of visits, they want a certain amount of time spent in the birth, they want postpartum visits, and they have a really limited reimbursement rate as well. I think TRICARE is reimbursing something like $600, which
it's really low.
Yeah, for anyone who's using doula services, that's not the cost of a doula. That's not a living wage for us, especially when they're requiring, I think they require like 5 visits or something like that. So it's quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't know the exact specifications. I actually looked into potentially getting approved as a but it's like so prohibitive to the doula too. So it just makes it very difficult. Sometimes you can apply for reimbursement. So if you pay the doula directly, then you can get reimbursed the other amount. One of the other kind of bummers about that is if for some reason your doula misses your birth, let's say it was really fast and they just they couldn't get there, or you forget to call them, or you just decide that you don't want to call them, they're out that money because they can't make it if they weren't there. So that's a really big bummer.
Right.
Some of the other bigger insurance companies sometimes have a certain amount of benefit that you can apply for. I've actually had people get reimbursed before for my hypnobirthing classes. They've asked me for kind of a super bill for those. So your doula will have to provide you with an itemized receipt kind of deal so that you can get those things covered.
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of doulas are not going to be covered by those insurance programs because of how limited they are in the certifications. And many choose not to bill for those insurance programs. So we would be considered out of network and you can apply for reimbursement in those ways. And some insurances, like we said, some will cover it, some will not. That's something that the doula community at large is working on advocating for, and the legislative sessions and all of these different things, talking to senators and all of that good stuff. So something that we hope to see in the future. Right now it is pretty limited, but
Yeah.
something that we are starting to see more of is programs that companies are, I guess, subscribing to that will pay for additional services. You want to share a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, I deal with this a lot because as the one that does all the paperwork behind the scenes for Empowered Beginnings, our little company here in Austin, when someone comes to us and says that they want birth doula care or postpartum doula care, sometimes they do tell us ahead of time that they have one of these reimbursement services. So, for example, Carrot Fertility is one of those. I believe Maven is another one that's coming about. There are different rules and things, but I'm going to give you an example. So, we have somebody contact us. They say, hey, we have a benefit through Carrot, but it requires that we have a certified doula, which Carrot is a little bit more lenient on which certification. So it doesn't have to be one of the top 4 in the country or something like that. It can be a little old mom and pop one like ours. Birth Baby Academy birth doulas have also been approved as being covered for this. So they'll tell us we have a certain amount of money. They don't usually tell us how much, and we're allowed to use it. Now, I have had some people tell us how much, which it's $10,000. We've had somebody up to $40,000. There are people with more than that. So I'm not exactly sure how that works on the business end of things. I'm sure that there's different subscriptions that you can do or whatever through work. But one of the cool things is this is giving access to people who may not have otherwise been able to afford doula care to have it. So it's birth and postpartum for the most part. There are restrictions on the birth doulas that it has to be, you have to have a certain amount of hours of experience and do a certain amount of recertifications or CEUs. And then as far as postpartum doula care goes, you have to make sure that you're not having 2 doulas overlap their time. You have to make sure that you are using all of the hours within the first 6 weeks of the baby's life. And if you need to extend it, there has to be a doctor's note as to why you can extend it, at least as of right now at the beginning of 2025 when we're recording this. So those things may change, but I'm just giving you examples of what that may look like. Now, there's not a huge downside, whereas with insurance or TRICARE, Medicaid, those kind of things, there's kind of a downside to the birth doulas and postpartum doulas because they are not being reimbursed as much as they would have, just like if you go to a doctor, right? The doctor is going to make more on a cash pay than they are on an insurance. Same with a doula. Whereas with Carrot, they pay the full amount of whatever it was that you normally charge. So they make sure that you're not overcharging. They go to your website, make sure you're doing the accurate pricing. You're not just price gouging because you know they're getting reimbursed, but you're being able to get fully reimbursed your normal rate. And these people are getting to have birth doula care and they may not have otherwise. I will say that one of the maybe downsides that we've seen is there are some people that seem like they don't value it as much because it was free to them. So there are some people that this is like, oh my gosh, we never could have had this. This is amazing. Like we are going to use it to its full extent. We love it. And the birth doulas love it when we're hearing people be excited about it. And we have other people that are kind of like, well, like I got it through work, take it or leave it. It's not as big of a deal because even though they got the money out of their pocket in the beginning, they're getting reimbursed the full amount. And so they're not so worried about it. So that is kind of how that works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're really cool programs. It's just things that you need to know about those things. So then what happens when we have, when someone doesn't have some of those coverages? Because not everyone does. Most people don't have them. They are just becoming a little bit more common. Um, and you still want a doula, and it's not necessarily something that's within reach for you. So there are a lot of other options that are available. Some of those would be working with doulas who have a sliding scale. Many doulas offer sliding scales for families who are not able to afford the full price. There are programs like here in Austin, we have GALS, which is Giving Austin Labor Support. And this is a grant funded organization that covers some portion or all doula support for families in the Austin area. And anyone can apply for that. It's not necessarily income based. And then you get assigned to a doula and get to work with them. So that's a really great option as well here in Austin. I know in some other areas, they have some similar programs and they are gaining more popularity as well. And then some of the things that just everyone can do is starting to think about putting it on your registry. There are a lot of different registry sites that allow you to like raise money for, hiring a doula or having your midwife or getting your birth photography or some of those services that we all, might really want, but can't necessarily afford on our own. And so we're not getting, 12 different high chairs and car seats and, 10,000 different little baby outfits, but maybe somebody can donate $20 towards your doula services or $100 or whatever that is. And that can help lessen the load on families a lot and also helps build your village. That's what we always tell people is hiring a doula, whether it's birth or postpartum, is going to help build your village to help you take care of this baby. So especially for those who maybe don't have a lot of family or friends around them and their family and friends from afar are like, how can I help? How can I make this easier? This is a great option. Put some money towards getting some of these services for them.
I love that you used the word village because that was something that I just remembered while you were talking. I was like, oh, I remember that one of the other doula companies here in Austin just posted something about the modern baby registry. And
Yes.
it says like what a baby needs: diapers, a place to sleep, and a supported parent. What a new mom needs. And then that list is so much longer. And it says add these to a Be Her Village registry. So there's something called Be Her
Yeah.
Village, which I need to go get on. I just haven't. Like we have so many other things we do, but I should, because you can actually go put those services from a certain company on your registry there, which is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're speaking about that and building your village or like getting the support that you need, we just recently had a mom and dad hire two of our postpartum doulas they were both like alternating nights. And I think they had a total of 3 nights a week and 1 day shift a week. And she was a brand new first time mom, had a baby that was very, very fussy. And I don't think they used it for birth doula care. I think they only did postpartum. And I went and had to do one of the day shifts because we had an emergency with one of our doulas. And so I did a day shift for them. And I told her, I said, man, I'm got to tell you, I'm just really impressed with you. Like a lot of first time moms are very anxious. You seem super chill. And she's a pretty type A person. And she was sitting there meal prepping and doing things. I was like, I can do that. I can help you in the kitchen, make your food at least. Because with Carrot, that's another thing. There are restrictions on what your postpartum doula can do. So meal prepping actually isn't something that you're supposed to do. I just told her that I could at least help her cook for the day.
Mm-hmm.
But those are things that a postpartum doula usually would do. Sometimes they're not allowed to. So postpartum doulas sometimes do sibling care. You're not allowed to with Carrot. They're not allowed to run errands with Carrot. And they're also not allowed to meal prep for other days. But anyway, so she's sitting there doing her cooking and she was like, I actually really enjoy cooking. It's been really nice to get back in the kitchen. And I said, you have a baby that's been really fussy and you've had some questions and you've had lactation consultants coming in and all of these things, but you seem really relaxed about the whole thing. I'm really impressed with you. And she goes, I have a lot of friends that keep reaching out and they're like, hey, do you need anything? Like, are you okay? Are you tired? Do you need me to hold a baby? And she goes, I keep telling them I'm fine. And they're like, are you really fine though? People usually aren't fine yet. It was like week 2. And she goes, but I really am. Having these postpartum doulas come and knowing that I have these nights with them and I have this 1 day shift a week, it's something to look forward to. And it is so helpful. And I just feel supported. I don't feel like I need any of my friends to come over. I was like, wow, what a testament to this care. Yeah.
I love that. And then when your friends do come over, it can be to sit and have coffee and spend time together rather than, feeling uncomfortable while somebody is, doing your dishes, which is what, any really great best friend is going to come do when they come to your house and you have a new baby. But if that doesn't have to get done because the postpartum doula did it, then great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. One more thing is with these programs, a lot of them, so obviously, if you're putting it on your registry, there's no restrictions on how you can use that money. But if you're using one of these programs or insurance, like we mentioned, the person does have to be certified. So make sure you're asking those questions before you hire someone if you have these restrictions based on whatever reimbursement service you're using. Because we have had inquiries come in where I'm matching with a doula who's not certified just because maybe she chose not to be. Not everyone chooses to certify. So we are going to do an episode about the difference between training and certification, why it may or may not be important. Because I think that a lot of parents have this view of like, a certification is so important, but I think they'd be surprised to see the difference that it really makes. But please do make sure you're really forthright with that information to start, because you might waste your time finding somebody you really love who doesn't match for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I hope this gave some clarity to any of you that are trying to figure out how these services might work for you or what options are available to you if you don't have these services. I think it's just always good to know the ins and outs of all of these different things so that you're going in with both eyes open. So we'll see you next week, and thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.